but I try to pick up things from other people when I talk about, when I talk about trumpet. It's like I don't know. I love talking to people about it. It's great. You learn something all the time, and failure is a great teacher.
Warning. This episode contains adult language and adult humor.
Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults?
If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. My guest for this episode is Ryan Chapman. Ryan is a Miami-based trumpet player, arranger, composer, and educator. Known for his amazing power and control of the upper register of the trumpet, Ryan is more than a high note jockey. Ryan is also a very insightful and intuitive teacher who has used his years of troubleshooting his own playing and equipment problems to create an effective approach that helps players of all levels make breakthroughs in their playing. So, pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin. Welcome to this episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang, and I am joined by my good friend Ryan Chapman, all the way down from Florida. What's happening, Ryan?
Oh, not much, man. Thanks for having me on, Jose.
Oh, always a pleasure. It's it's been too long since we've had a chat. So how are you managing these days with all of this COVID craziness?
Well, actually, I'm doing pretty good. I wound up getting offered a job right when all this stuff happened, teaching, and so basically, the offer was just too good to refuse. And I'm teaching in person outside by a beautiful lake, and it's everything's good, man. I've been super busy. I've actually had gigs that like I've had gigs here and there, a recording session for a church and a whole bunch of other things that have gone, some arranging projects. It's been considering the year, it's been exceptionally good.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's funny because there are some people that just have had zero work, and then there's
Yeah.
others that they're still it's not like it was when you're, especially if you're a touring musician. Obviously that completely blows. But for doing stuff, and especially in an area like you're in where you can have more outdoor venues and things like that. I mean, we're stuck up here for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely being down here in Florida. Like being able to teach outside is great. I was doing a pretty cool teaching gig before, and that allowed me time off and to do all the playing stuff, go on the road with Tommy Dorsey or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of saw the writing on the wall that that company wasn't going to be able to like sustain itself with all this COVID mess. And when I actually, it was kind of funny. Like, I think it was Dan Miller who called me. He's like, I heard about this gig, man. You should probably apply for this. And that's I kind of like was like, okay. And then I got a phone call, and then it was just like, yeah, man. Yeah. So I was like, I can't turn this down with all this mess going on. I just had to jump in and go.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to do, man. And that's the story of being a musician, though, is that you have to be able to you have to be ready to jump on those opportunities when they come up.
Right. And I've actually done I've done a lot of writing for my groups because they're small, strange instrumentation, and so it's been good. It's been a lot of writing, just a lot of stuff, man. I feel like I feel kind of blessed in for lack of a better word at this point in time,
Yeah.
considering our situation.
Yeah, well, that's it. There's always an opportunity. There's always something that you can do about any
Right.
situation. It's just a question how creative you are,
Right.
and so I mean, I'm happy for you, man. I'm really happy for you. So, what's been going on with like with your writing? You're saying you're writing for your group that you're working with. The students, but how about the writing and arrangement that you've been doing, like for your Ryan Chapman Orchestra and other other
Oh
projects?
yeah. Well, I've got one. It's I'm doing a collaboration with Lisanne Lyons, a fabulous singer, and in South Florida, and I'm going to do a collaboration with her. One of the one of my kind of mentors in college and my undergraduate was a guy named Tony DeAndrea, and he passed away during this COVID mess back in, I believe it was July. And so I was, the night that he passed away, I didn't find out the next day, but I was kind of thinking about him, and I was writing this ballad tune, and I was like, okay, so this is going to be this is the way I'm going with this. And it's kind of like a ballad that has like a hip hop section in the middle of it, and it's going to be kind of interesting. So I'm planning on trying to start doing recording for that like sometime in May to release around the time of his uh, the year anniversary of his death. But just really trying to do some interesting stuff with the writing, that kind of thing. I somebody asked me to do an intro for the Air National Guard Band of the South. Kind of like a nice Air Force theme kind of intro, 1.5 minute intro kind of thing. So I got that going on. I got a few other things, but it's like with the day gig, you just gotta balance everything out. But
Right.
hopefully the venue that we like to play at in the venue that we like to play at, Open Stage, it basically closed when all this COVID stuff happened. They were up for renewal of their lease in the city of Coral Gables. Were just like, yeah, we want to put something else in this building, so
Yeah.
you guys are out. We're not renewing your lease. And they were supposed to be given another, like 7-year lease or something like that. So
Right.
it's it is what it is, but there will be other places to play when things open up. I'm actually playing in another group. I've been playing with this group for like about, I guess, about 4 years, over in Naples, Florida, called Stardust Memories, and we're playing to crowds of like 500 people. They're masked in chairs, all spread out, and we're on stage, spread out in like a flying V. So like
Yeah.
the next person over to me is like, like 5 feet away from me, and I'm
Yeah.
up on the front edge of the stage, usually hidden behind a speaker.
And it's a good place to keep you.
Exactly.
Uh,
So
it makes it easier, like to sneak off stage to get yourself,
yeah,
a little sandwich or something, between
yeah.
tunes.
But yeah, no, it's great. There's a couple venues over on the west coast of Florida that have been allowing people to gather in parks and that kind of thing, as long as
Yeah.
certain protocols are followed and that kind of thing. It'd be nice when stuff opens up and we can, we'll actually be able to actually do gigs indoors, man. It's a thing. So
Yeah, it's been an adjustment. I'll just put it that way. It's been an adjustment. So, but I mean, it's cool that you've got some stuff going on. So when you're recording, are you primarily doing that at home?
yeah. I've got the stuff that I've been recording. The last couple things that I did two this summer. One was a tribute to another friend of mine that was a mentor in Chattanooga, where I did my undergraduate, who taught me a little bit about arranging back in the day. He was one of the first people that I really picked his brains and that kind of thing. And man, it was so last minute. Like I just got a phone call. Yo, Paul's in hospice. I'm like, what? No, like I had no idea. But anyway, I found a phone message of his where he was singing me the melody to a tune that he was like, hey, I want you to do an arrangement of this. Can you do this when you get time? Just do it. And so I was like, sure I can, but I'm like super busy right now. And then it was from the message was from like 3 years previous, and I just
Mm.
never got around to doing it. And
Yeah.
so I kind of did that, and did the recording and the producing of all the stuff. And I did one based on Bach, called "The Count Behind." Bach's Toccata and Fugue was the there were about 7 notes from the beginning of that were the basis for the whole composition, and it all came about. I actually did a cruise ship gig, and we had this old Polish band leader that counted the tune off like literally a swing tune would count the swing tune off like this: a one, a two, a one, two, three, four. Like the count from the from
Right.
Sesame Street.
Right. Right.
And so that was kind of an interesting writing thing, because I started writing that when I got on the ship, and then a couple weeks later I finished it up, and I was like, yeah, this is actually kind of cool. And I wrote it with strings, and so I had some friends from that I went to school with at the University of Miami, and played strings on it, and I think it came out great. But yeah, it's fun. I love writing. I'm trying to do more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you about that next. Is that you have turned into quite the prolific writer. So is that been something that you've always kind of had your eye on, or is this something that's kind
I've always wanted to do it, but I think the biggest thing for me is that in all my earlier education, like my undergraduate and my master's, I was missing a few tools in the toolbox to like wrap my head around and to like really go fast. Like I really learned a lot from. I knew how to lay an arrangement out. I'd done a bunch of transcriptions. I learned a lot that way by doing transcriptions, but nobody had ever told me about approach techniques for non-chord tones, or like I reharm, obviously I knew about that, but as far as like standard approach techniques that you can just implement. So if you've got a deadline and you've got to write something right now, you don't spend any time, you don't waste any time. You just sit down and you start writing. You know exactly what to write that will work. It may
Right.
not be may not be groundbreaking writing, but you can sit down and you can just pump something out.
Right.
So at the University of Miami, studying with Gary Lindsay and also Whit Seidner, man, it was just really eye-opening to me. It's like, I wish I had learned this stuff, 15, 20 years ago. I probably would have written a whole lot more stuff by now, but it is what it is. You got to be in the right place in the right time. And you have to be, I feel like you have to be in a certain place to really take knowledge of something that you want to know, or that you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's also then developing those frames of reference, being able to have things to connect it so it eventually makes sense to you.
All
So,
right.
yeah. So that's really cool. I mean, it sounds like to me that Miami had, like, going to the University of Miami was really sort of a pivotal moment for you in terms of your development as a musician.
Right. It really was just, there's stuff that I dabbled in as far as like chord voicing and stuff like that my friend Paul Lohorn had taught me, but it didn't come full circle and make sense until did I just lose you?
I'm here.
Okay. Stupid Adobe. I thought we were done with Adobe. So it come full circle, like when Whit Seidner sits down and says, okay, so I'm going to teach you how to use grips, and you're going to be able to play these 5 songs at the end of this semester. You'll be able to play the melody and do that. And I'm like, really? Okay. So he starts teaching me, but it was, I got to take private lessons with Whit. So, he would talk about his life. He would talk about all sorts of things. But really, like, the information, you would walk in there and sit down and play piano for him, and he would tell you all these different things. And you walk out of the room and you're just like, I got to go to a practice room right now and just start practicing what he taught me, because if I don't, I'm going to forget it, because it was
Right.
just so much information that it was just, like your brain just.
Yeah. 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 I've had those moments for sure. So yeah, actually, I did want to talk about about University of Miami. So not everybody knows that you're actually Dr. Chapman. Dr.
Yeah.
Chapman. Yes. So and I was really fascinated by your dissertation.
Oh, yes, the dissertation.
The dissertation.
Yes.
So is that something that you talk about a lot? Like, people bring this one up to you a lot?
Every once in a while I get a phone call or get an email of like, hey, I'm like really studying this, like I'm working on doing a paper about this. Can I talk to you about your paper? Because I feel like this is a topic not very many people, touch on. And I'm like, sure, yeah, sure. And like with singers, I have the discussion with singers, like they're like, oh, you did your paper on that? Whoa. I said, yeah, I used like a vocal reference in there somewhere,
Yeah.
It, it's it it's something it's a very advanced topic to discuss, if you know what I mean. Like I could have the discussion with you and people that are on our level that have enough experience that understand what's going on. But like if you're in high school or maybe in college, maybe it's probably something you could discuss more with a college student that understands or is having trouble doing certain things, and they just needed to be pointed in the right direction to um, be able to play in the upper register relaxed or something, because they usually just develop habits, and then there's tons of other things. I mean, we're beating around the bush. We're not specifically talking about the subject right now, but there's um the excess tension, isometric tension in your body, and being a trumpet player is something that's not generally addressed, and a lot of it manifests for some people at their glottis in their throat. So
Well, so for those of you who are not familiar, and there will be a link in the show notes for this. So if you want to spend an enjoyable and relaxing 45 minutes or so reading, if you've eaten too many nachos and you need to spend some time in the porcelain library, you can take this along with you. It's a strategy for proper utilization of the glottis and implications of improper use in trumpet performance. It is a bestseller on the Ryan Chapman Library of Books. But no, honestly, it is a great. It is a wealth of information. I know,
yeah,
for example, like Augie Haas's
right.
dissertation. Yeah, that's another one. It's just so great. If you're a trumpet player and you either just want to learn more, if you just want to have more tools in
Right.
your toolbox, absolutely, go out and find some of these dissertations, read them, and then secondly, if you're having problems and you just need to try and start to dissect problems that either you're having or that a student is having, if you're a teacher, great resources. But I really liked your approach to that. I mean, just the topic itself, because as you were pointing out that we have all these ways of explaining things, and they don't really explain them fully. So the idea of like, okay, we'll relax your throat. Well, what
Yeah.
does relax your throat
What does
mean?
that mean? I mean, the first when I was told that by my band director, I it was complete, like misdirection to me. Like what I realized after about a few weeks of trying to relax my throat, I was actually pushing my Adam's apple down, which is still creating tension. In fact, maybe more tension. It was
Right.
more difficult to play. And so I'm like, how do I get around this? And most of my career, after high school, my musical career and that kind of things, I kind of discovered some of these things on my own. I did study with a few people. I had some lessons. I had a lesson with Faddis. I had a lesson with Rich Zabo, Vinny DiMartino, those kind of things. And some of those people addressed it. There was a guy in North Carolina that one of the I feel like one of my better utilizations of exercises to teach students actually came from him. He's his name's Tim Phillips. I think he teaches at what is it, Lenore Ryan University, I believe it is. And yeah, I don't even know if he remembers exactly what he taught me, but it's something that like almost every student I can tell a student to do those things, and they get like an immediate response right away. And and I haven't heard any other professional musicians really tell students to do those same sort of things, and that stuff's in the paper, but it's like if somebody wants to come to me for a lesson, man, like even if you're a professional and you're having issues, man, I'm more than willing to talk to you about this stuff, and it's something that's dear to me because it was something that I had to overcome in my career to get where I am today. Because and I have no aspirations to play a G above double C or any of that stuff. I had no aspirations to do any of that stuff. But because I figured this out, that led to me figuring out some other stuff, and it just started happening. But I know the road that I took to get there, and I can direct people in that direction because I had to figure it out. It's not just like everything that I everything that I have, I've had to work for to get. None of it came natural to me.
Yeah. And and that's a really important concept. It's the things that you as a teacher, the things that you've had to struggle with, the things that you had to figure out are so important. There's all kinds of famous quotes about failures and things like that. But in my martial arts training, there's a famous saying that we had, which was invest in loss. Which the whole idea was every time you do something, when you fail at it, when you lose, there's a lesson to be learned in it, and so you invest in it. You never want to be that person who's gone undefeated, because that means that you've really never learned anything. So
Right, right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, and the other thing is like I can tell a lot of times when I talk to other either trumpet professors or professionals that I know, I can tell by talking to them where they kind of had failures before, because they're really knowledgeable about some things that I'm not that knowledgeable about. And they're like they hit me to like ideas or approaches or like things you can help to relate to students because they've been working in that direction so long. And I have my little niche of working in the direction that I know really well, and I use that stuff. But I try to pick up things from other people when I talk about when I talk about trumpet. It's like I don't know, I love talking to people about it. It's great. You learn something all the time, and failure is a great teacher.
yeah, oh yeah, it's if you go to a natural, whatever it is, and it's not so much that anyone is really a natural at trumpet playing, because there's nothing natural about trumpet playing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but there are people that just kind of they've got the tools, all the tools that they really need are kind of already there, and so
And
you know
sometimes all they can say is, "Oh, well, you just do this," and it's like what you just said before. Well, you just got to relax your throat.
yeah,
Well, you. Anytime you tell any muscle to relax, it's not going to relax. It's gonna tense up.
yeah,
The only thing you can do is be aware and let go.
yeah.
Which is such a different concept than just relax
Yeah.
or try to relax.
Yeah, well, it's because there's the physiological component, and then there's a psychological component, and if you, it's not saying that you have to have a degree in kinesiology to understand how to play trumpet, but understanding biomechanics certainly helps in the problem solving aspect.
Oh yeah.
So like when you say relax, well, how do you relax a muscle? Well, like you were saying earlier, our tendency is to think about doing the opposite, which is then tensing
Another muscle
another
and
muscle.
creating isometric tension
Right.
between the two muscles pulling against each other.
So
Yeah.
the relaxation is just it's passive as opposed to active. I mean, I always tell people it's much easier to train someone to become stronger than it is to become more flexible because
Right.
flexibility is about letting go. And
Right.
and that's the hardest thing for us, especially if you're a highly motivated person, you have a hard time letting go of things. You want to push. You can't push relaxing. Relaxing is the
Right.
opposite of that. So getting into the psychology and the understanding of how the brain works and why it works and how like the nomenclature that we use, the way that we phrase things, it's the stuff that makes sense to us, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to someone else. and
Right.
and it's the things get lost in translation. One of the because one of the things that I really liked that you were saying in your dissertation was talking about like the tongue arch, and how the arching of the towards the rear portion of the mouth is going to create more tension. But of course, everybody is taught to oh, if you want to play higher, then you want to go from ah to e, and changing the syllables. But if you don't understand how your mouth is, the oral cavity is formed, and it's different for everybody,
Right. Yeah.
you don't have you're probably going to do it the wrong way. The odds are.
Yeah. Well, I remember Claude. I had Claude Gordon's book when I was in high school, and like I swear that book, I had more questions after reading that than because it was like the explanations in there, while like they may be exactly valid points, but if you're first learning that stuff and you're first hearing those words that are written in the book, it's like you can misinterpret so many different things, and I'm this stuff that I'm sure that he wasn't doing, but I'm like, does he mean do this or does he mean do this? I'm not really. So what happens? Oh, so I'm saying e. So I'm saying it with my tongue in between my teeth like this, and it doesn't really do a whole lot besides change the size of the mouth cavity. But if you spread out the tongue on the edge of the teeth and you go it changes the size of the opening that the air has to flow through, which creates a compression point other than at the lips or at the throat, you know, to create that compression when you push the air against it.
Yeah, there's so many methods. There's so many methodologies, and I think so much of it's driven by the way you explain things.
Yeah,
But
I believe there's validity in everything, but you have to have a knowledge base in order to be able to interpret what that information means for you. And it's a man. I feel like we're like totally bombarded with information these days. I mean,
oh
there's
yeah, it was.
so much. And
Geez,
when
man,
I
it's
was
gotten worse. I mean, that's the great thing about the living here in the information age is that anything you need is at your fingertips. But the
on
problem
YouTube,
is,
everything's on YouTube.
it's all there, and not all of it's good.
Not of it, not all of it's valid. Exactly. There's so much misinformation, and the guys that are making money off their YouTube videos and all this crazy stuff, half of them are handing out misinformation and they're getting money off of it. There's a name that we won't mention, but
He
good
should.
Lord, he has probably made more money than several people I know that are just absolutely fantastic artists and teachers, but he's probably made more money, and we're not going to mention names. I don't even go there. Nobody should
Yeah,
ever click on any link that he has ever again.
you
I
know,
didn't say he, did I? It.
yeah,
Don't it.
it.
Don't.
I know who you's talking about, but yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's always looking at the end result, because that's where the proof is. But there's also there's a level of okay, there's some fundamental truths in how you have to approach things, and that's I don't know if I always get it confused whether it's first level or first order thinking, but it's boiling things down to the most fundamental premise, and you get to that, and then everything else is based off of that premise.
Right.
And so when you're trying to solve a problem, you go down to that one just fundamental, and then say, okay, now I can start thinking about more creative ways of working with the situation, as opposed to dealing with
Right.
the circumstances. Because yeah,
Well, boiling it down to its whatever you're working on, boiling it down to its most fundamental, like most fundamental, like, what is my problem? Why can't I play this? And a lot of times it has to do with isometric tension. I mean, when you're a trumpet player, it's like as soon as I'm like trying to play something that I think something's difficult and I'm trying to play it, and I'm just like, I'm just getting mad about it. And then I step back and I'm like, well, my fundamental problem, oh, well, I'm getting tense. I'm like, stuff's happening here, like I'm not playing like my usual self.
mhm.
So it's like you have to think about getting yourself back to that fundamental, that one thought that you want to be, the one basic goal you want to be relaxed in how you play.
Yeah, and just looking at the big picture, the end game.
Yeah.
I like to tell people, So like when we first met, was at ITG in Hershey
Hershey, yeah,
a few
yeah.
years ago, and we were hanging out there. We were both there with Terry Warburton in the Warburton booth, and
Oh, speaking of, that's another project I got to get going. There's a virtual writing project that will be coming soon, hopefully.
oh, awesome, very good.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye out for that one, but. But when I was was helping with Terry with the mouthpiece stuff, selling mouthpieces to people, that was the most interesting thing to me, was having people come up and I want this mouthpiece because this player plays it, or I want this mouthpiece, and I need a lead piece. And it's just asking people questions like, well, what are you playing now, and what is it that you don't like about it? What's it not doing for you that you're looking to make a change? And I was surprised at how few people could actually verbalize what it was that they didn't like about their old equipment or the current equipment, and what they were hoping to gain, other
Right.
than I just want to be able to play high notes.
Right, right, right. When I developed my mouthpiece, I was like, I know what I want and I know what I don't want, and this isn't working and this isn't working the way I want it to. So this is what I want. Like, I can tell you exactly what I want, and I did enough research to know, okay, I want I want the inside edge of the cup to go straight down because I want I want more accurate articulation out of the mouthpiece that has more point to it than the majority of lead mouthpieces, which just kind of slope down like this. And
Hmm.
so when you put your lips in there and you tongue on them, they tend to sound brittle. There's no that like they can jump all over the place. And because I knew that, I was able to work with Terry, and we were able to get going in a direction to make it work. But a lot of people don't know that. They don't know what they want. What's this mouthpiece not doing for me? Like, I knew exactly, I don't like this mouthpiece because it's brittle sounding and the articulation is all over the place. But gee, I can play high on it, but it doesn't sound good, and I want to sound good.
Yeah.
So how do we, get, back to that,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You don't have to know all of the answers. You don't have to know
Right.
how it comes together. That's why you have experts.
Right, right,
So
right.
even if it's me coming to you for a trumpet lesson and saying, "Hey, I want you to help me with my playing," and if you say, "Well, what do you want to change?" and if I just say, something like, "Well, I just want to get better," that doesn't give you anywhere to start from. You
Right.
know,
It doesn't,
and
yeah,
then
it's not identifying the issues.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can say, "Hey, my endurance is just really bad, or my accuracy, I don't feel accurate," then that gives you something to work with. And then as the master craftsman, then you can start giving me the direction to go the way I want to
Right.
go.
Right. There was a Brazilian guy that came to me. Uh his name, we'll just say his first name. His name was Rodolfo. He was working on a ship, and he comes in. Uh, his actual name is not Rodolfo, by the way, but we'll just say his name is Rodolfo. So the guy comes to me, and he's like, "So I want to be more efficient. I've got to play these shows, man, and like my endurance is just getting worse and worse, and I'm having the hardest time playing, and like all this stuff." And I look at what he's playing, and he's playing a copy of a Monet mouthpiece with this gigantic throat on a large bore trumpet, right? And basically he's basically trying to play lead on this equipment that's not really like lead equipment. It's just not, like, yeah, it can be done, but you got to be a really, really strong player to make that kind of stuff happen. And so I was like, well, here, let me give you this mouthpiece and let's see what happens. His chops, everything were working great. He picked up the mouthpiece and immediately played better.
Yeah.
He had no idea the equipment that people sometimes they don't know what equipment does. They buy equipment because such and such sounds good on it, or this, or like,
Or it's pretty.
Yep. It's pretty.
I had one of those. I had a Purdy horn.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
I've bought a couple of large bore horns because, well, Arturo can play an X3, so I'm gonna buy an X3. And man, did I try to kill myself on that X3 for about 2 or 3 years. And I was like, I gotta go the other direction. And so I started playing, a little bit smaller equipment. I wound up with like what is that, the S42. I had like one of those with the regular bell, not the the tunable bell. I played that for a little bit, and man, that was so much easier to play than the old X3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm with you, man. When my second horn, my first horn, like most people, was a student horn. It was a King Cleveland, and then my first real horn after that was a Holton ST302. So the Maynard, the MF horn, the 468, and that thing was just, I mean, it was a tank. It was a tank. And then my next horn was a large bore. I've played large bores for.
Hey, I actually, like it. I feel like there are large bores that are balanced really well and they play really well, and you can play efficient on them. And then there's large bores that are just horribly inefficient. There's nothing.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing to blow up front. It's just like you're blowing into a barrel. It's so big.
Yeah, and that was it. I mean, and for the longest time, I was like, okay, well, I can only play large bore horns, but it was not that it was a large bore. It was just the way it was balanced. The two horns that I had, the second horn was a Callet. And that all, I mean, that still plays great. It's a great horn. It's one of his New York. Wasn't one of the more.
Well, man, it's hilarious. Like some of those Callet horns play great, and some of them don't play so great. They're like
they're all over the place.
All over the place, man. Yeah.
But I remember the first time I tried to play Z, and man.
Oh yeah, the first time I played the Z, I was like, "What is this? I can't play this. What is this?"
Yeah, it took me like about my horn was getting repaired, and I borrowed a friend's horn, and his spare horn happened to be a Z, and it was like, oh my God! But after about 3 months of playing on that thing, I finally figured it out, and it's like, oh wow, this is actually easier to play.
So much easier, yeah. And it's funny. I was playing. When I got mine, I was working on a ship. I think I was on this Celebration, and we met up with a guy that was on another ship that had a 6310Z, and he was willing to sell it for $900. And this buddy of mine that was in the orchestra set up a meeting, and we went down to Carlos and Charlie's on the pier, and met up with these cats from the other ship. And he's like, here, I'll let you try it out for 2 weeks. And, like, you can pay me, in 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, sounds fair. So they let me take the horn. The other guy that was on the ship, no, that wasn't on the Jubilee. That was on the Celebration. It was on the Jubilee, because I remember the other guy now. The other guy, he had a Severance and Ackright trumpet that he let the other guy take. And so I started playing it, and I was like, oh man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I could do this. 2 weeks later, it took me about 2 weeks of playing, playing shows every day with it, that I was like, oh wow, there is really something to this. It was so much easier, so much less work. And I wound up I think when I was in college, I had this it was a Holton Canadian brass trumpet that was like large bore.
Mm-hmm.
But in the upper register, like, D was super flat. Like, there was like all kinds of weird stuff. But I took it out to the next ship, and I was like, well, I can play really loud. And the pit on ships is like super loud. So I was like, oh, I can play really loud on this. This is cool. I played that for a while, and then it got damaged. And then I had to go back to my 6310Z, and I was just like, why was I even trying to play that other horn? Like I don't need to play that loud. This is so much easier. It's in tune. It's right in the box. You don't have to fight the intonation of the horn.
Yeah.
So really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the key. It's the mental shift that you have to go through when you're trying to dial in and become more efficient with the playing, because we've developed all these bad habits to compensate for either improper mechanics that we've developed over the years, or to fight the inadequacies of the equipment that we're using. And then when you finally get something that's tuned in, that's designed, it's almost like driving a Ferrari. It's so finely tuned. You don't need to steer it like you're driving a
Yeah, you don't know what to do with it, because you're trying to drive it like your Honda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it takes a little bit of getting used to the fact that you don't have to fight as much, but it becomes a fight in another way. It's the isometric tension, but it's the isometric tension up here.
Right.
It's the, well, I can't push it, so I have to, I have to hold it back a little bit. So instead of not putting your foot, this is what I would tell my students, like, there are two ways you can slow down. You can either slow down by putting your foot on the brake, which is tension, or just take your foot off the gas. That's just,
Oh, that's a good analogy right there. I like it.
and so most of us, that's what we do. It's like when we need to slow down, slow our roll, it's, we want to just put our foot on the brake.
Right.
Well, actually, speaking of gear, we're going to do something. I have a new segment to the podcast, and it's called Gear Up, and we're just going to actually talk about gear a little bit. I love talking gear, but I don't want to be one of those guys that wants to just spend 45 minutes talking about what mouthpiece and horn you endorse, and so like blah blah blah. But anyway, but we are going to talk gear. So right now, what is your current go-to setup?
Well, my current go-to setup is a Frankenhorn, and it's a 1S Bell Colicchio and a 10 Colicchio lead pipe on an old, I say old, 90s 6310Z. I think it's late 90s. I'm not sure. 6310Z. I can't remember exactly when those came out, but I want to say it was earlier. Maybe it might be like early 2000. But yeah, so 6310Z valve section and tuning slide on a Colicchio 10 pipe that is cut at 0.338, and that's the opening size. Typically, Colicchio 10 pipes are cut at 0.339, I believe it is, for 10. and this
Mm-hmm.
is just like 1/1000th of an inch smaller or whatever. And unfortunately, John Duda passed away recently. May he rest in peace. But yeah, and I have a couple other parts that I have, but that's what I'm playing on as far as a trumpet. And then I'm playing on Terry Warburton Ryan Chapman model top with a New York backbore with a 30 throat on both. Um, just like I've tweaked the back part of the top just a little bit with I mean like minutely with a tapered reamer just to shore up the connection in the middle, but otherwise that's basically it.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
I have a different piece for piccolo trumpet. I have a different model piece for that, and but it's I play a P54 Butler Geyer, and what else? I'm playing an Adams F1 for Rose Brass for other stuff with Warburton, my custom model mouthpiece
Mhm.
for Warburton.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you like to have a nice efficient setup. You like your resistance up front.
Yeah, up front, definitely for me is up front.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, cool, cool. So with and that's interesting with the Frankenhorn because I know a lot of guys that have done that, and actually I kind of uh, have done that a few times myself, and it's trying to find the right match. Um, and
Yeah, I got super lucky. I just was like, I'm doing this, and I did it, and I was just like, the Stefan Klein at All County Music did it, and I had it in my hand. I'm in his apartment. His dog's yapping. I'm like playing it in his apartment, and he's like, he's scared to death that I'm not gonna like it because he thought it was too bright or something. And I don't know. And I played it, and I was like, yeah, this is what I've been looking for, and I can't find. So it just it just happened to work. I
yeah,
tried it with a Bach, didn't work as well. Still better than a Bach, but didn't work as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool. So, yeah, one of the reasons I'd like to talk about gear is, like we were talking about earlier, is finding out what goes through their minds when they're putting together the packages that they utilize. And in this case, like you've had custom mouthpieces. You basically have built a custom horn for it's a Frankenhorn, but it is a one of a kind horn. So. Um, what kind of thought process did you go through as you explained it with the mouthpiece a little bit, but with the horn?
Oh, with the horn. So this is basically it. I mean, like I spent a lot of time while I was at Miami. Larry Lappin retired, who was a really long time. He'd been in the vocal department for a really long time. Basically, built the program up there. He retired, and Steve Reed's wife Kate came and interviewed for the job at the University of Miami. So when she came, she got the job and they moved to town. Steve Reed and I used to hang out like once every couple weeks, and we would sit there and talk shop and play trumpets. And he played a Colicchio 1S10, and so I started picking his brain about equipment. Why did you do this? Blah blah blah. And he was telling me, well, John Duda is like a genius. He's doing all these kinds of things. Like this horn was made custom for me. He goes, this is my backup horn. This horn wasn't adjusted for me, but I got it as a backup in case anything happened to this one. But this one, this is the one. This plays great. So I played his horn. And I was like, man, this is so much easier to play than what than even, I was playing at the time. I was playing the 8310 Bobby Shoe Z,
Hmm.
and it played it played so much better than that. There's a thing with Yamaha trumpets, and I think this is maybe something that Wayne really likes about it. I haven't had this discussion with Wayne. I don't think I've had this discussion with Frank Green, but I don't think I've had it with Wayne. But I have a feeling that Wayne likes the instrument for this reason. It's it's almost like the bell on Yamaha trumpets is like a compressor. It's like it allows you to play the instrument to a certain point and you don't get anything more out of it. You can put 10% more energy into it and you don't get any more volume out of it. It stays there.
Hmm.
It's like a compressor. It doesn't let you go past a certain point.
Right.
And so the Yamaha 8310Z, that's what I feel like. Binges, for example, binges are kind of like the Calikios. If you're at the edge and you want to put more on something, say you're playing a double C at the end of something, and you just want to just really put all your energy into making that note just a little bit louder to cut over the band. The binge is going to let you do that. The Calicchio is going to let you do that, but the Yamaha is going to give you the same volume that you're at when it hits that point, no matter how much energy you put into it.
Hmm.
And in some respects, that's I mean, that's plenty loud enough. I mean, I don't even it's plenty loud enough.
Right.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
It really is. But there's something in my head that was like, well, if I get this horn, it's not like it has a compressor. So I'm able to like it respond. I feel like the response is better on it.
Right. Right.
So first I got a lead pipe. I put the lead pipe on and I'm like, yeah. So the horn that I use, the donor horn, if you will, a friend of mine who was 93 passed away, and his family, his name was Charlie Higgins. His family uh, gave me two of his horns at the funeral, and one of them was a Yamaha 6310Z. So I still have my old 6310Z. It's a great horn. The one that he had, though, there was just something off about it. It just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the bell was more like a compressor than the normal bell that I
Right.
had on my other one. So I tried it. Tried the lead pipe. The lead pipe by itself didn't work. So I ordered the 1S bell. Put the 1S bell and the lead pipe on at the same time, and it was just like that's it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like and I've been playing that horn ever since, and it's been really I've tried to get away from it a little bit, but at the same time, it just works, and it's not a whole lot of effort.
Yeah. Cool. So, if you are, since you're teaching right now, and you have some young students, and maybe some of them are ready to take a step up in their equipment, what kind of advice do you generally give people for how to go about finding a better horn, better mouthpiece, how to match things up?
Well, I mean, as a professional, I would say have a good solid idea, like we talked about before. Have a good solid idea of what the equipment you have right now is not doing for you, and what you want the equipment to do for you. And you know, it could be as simple as I want an instrument that plays more in tune. It's like, and then of course you got some students in some places that are like getting, these some of these Chinese horns like Mindini or whatever, and I mean, like, I don't know about you, but I would be super tired at the end of a gig trying to play one of those
Yeah.
horns, just because the intonation on those things is just
Yeah.
totally wonky. But know what you want out of out of the equipment that you're purchasing, even if you're, like, I mean, I think that's the best advice. No, kind of have an idea of what you want, so that when you walk into a store, I mean, if you can walk into a store and purchase an instrument, you could tell somebody that knows about the equipment, what you're looking to get out of the instrument.
Yeah.
So
Cool. That's solid advice. All right. Well, we are going to move into our final portion of the show, and this is brought to us by our good friends at Robinson's Remedies. It's the Robinson's Remedies Rapid Fire Round. Thank you, Kenny and Richard, for creating such great products that keep your lips from falling off your face on those hard gigs. It's part arnica, part super glue. No, I'm kidding. But no, but certainly I do thank Kenny and Richard for supporting this show. And so this is a series of questions, and I'm just going to throw them out. They're all over the place. All I need is your quickest answer to these. Are you ready?
I don't know. From you, I have no idea where this is going. This is kind of scary.
Yeah, you should be scared. You should be scared. All right, here you go. First question.
All right.
Who's the biggest influence on your life that's not a trumpet player?
Oh, biggest influence on my life that's not a trumpet player. Just spot off, probably. I don't know. I mean, there's so many. I don't know. Depends on for what. But I'll say probably my high school band director, because he's the only reason that I chose to play trumpet.
Okay, cool. All right. What's your favorite book?
Oh, that's a good one. It's kind of split between The Talent Code.
I love that book.
And The Practice of Practice, Jonathan Harnum. Have you read that one?
I have not. I'll have to add that to my list.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like the combination of both. There's so much good information in there that most people never talk about.
Okay, well, may I put a link to to that book in the show notes as well, because I'm all about good books. All right, what's the worst movie you've ever seen?
The worst movie I've ever seen. Dolomite?
You're gonna diss Dolomite?
Jokingly, of course.
Yes.
No,
yeah. It wasn't a great movie.
No, it wasn't. There's probably I could probably come up with a better one than that, but I mean, it was good for a laugh. It was definitely good for a laugh, but
it was not high cinema.
No, it was not high. The story behind the whole thing is what makes it great.
Oh yeah. That did you see the thing they did with Eddie Murphy?
Yes, I did see that.
That made me appreciate the movie much more.
Oh yeah, exactly. The story behind it that makes it great, but it was a horrible movie.
Oh yeah, it was a horrible movie. All right. If you weren't a trumpet player, what would you want to be?
Probably. I would just say, probably like a composer. Whatever. I'm kind of doing sort of that, but like I probably composition, maybe a piano player. I don't know.
All right. What's your favorite drink?
This is an interesting one. I have to say that I don't really have one. It's pretty much I like everything.
It's the one you have in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
The one that somebody bought for you is your favorite one.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true trumpet player there. All right, you can have a dinner party. You can have this wonderful dinner party, and you can invite any 3 people in the world, any 3 people to come to your dinner party, spend an evening with you. Who would they be?
Oh God, here we go with that. That's interesting. Probably it would be interesting to see Steve Reed, John Faddis, and Doc Severinsen in the same room talking to each other. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that I would want the tape recordings of that. All right, now same scenario. Same is another dinner party. 3 additional people, but they can be anyone from history, so anyone who is no longer with us.
Nobody that's somebody that well, obviously Maynard Ferguson. Uh, Probably Tommy Dorsey and boy, decisions. Bud Herseth.
Okay, good ones. All right, lacquer plated or raw?
Definitely raw. We're talking about trumpets, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, whatever, whatever floats your boat. What's your favorite quote?
Not my tempo.
Not my tempo.
Yeah, from the movie Whiplash.
Oh, okay. I have still not
I
seen that
use that
movie.
one. I use that one a lot.
Yeah.
Not my tempo.
That's one, two. Uh, what is your greatest fear?
Probably dealing with a particular parent. Yes.
Okay.
a student a student's parent. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably my biggest fear right now.
All right. Okay. You can be granted one superpower. What would it be?
Oh man, these this is man, I'm horrible at answering these questions. Let's see, one superpower, what would it be? Altering time.
Mm, thought it was going to be able to eat as many chicken wings as you possibly could.
No, no, no. Altering time would be a good superpower, I think.
Yeah. Okay. What aspect of trumpet playing do you think is the most overrated?
Meaning, how do you mean overrated?
That people put more emphasis or more importance on it than it particularly warrants.
Huh. Probably high notes. Even though that's what I do, it's probably, you know, the most important things to me are musicianship, and it's not about high notes. If you have a good sound and you play musically and make make music, play beautifully, that to me is like way more important than playing high notes. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
think people, but it's been an important part of my life.
Yeah,
But
yeah, there you go. It's paid the bills for you.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
what do you think the most underrated aspect of trumpet playing is?
I think playing musically.
Hmm.
Honestly, that playing musically is probably underrated, but that is the most important thing to me.
Right, right. Gotcha. All right. Speaking of your ability to manipulate time, you can go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Spend more time with a metronome earlier in my career, and really, really, no matter how difficult something is, time is more important than everything else.
Okay. And while you're back there, you're going to give yourself one piece of advice about life.
I guess do the best you can and don't take anything for granted.
All right. Final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
Hopefully, my legacy will be probably people that I've influenced or taught. That maybe that the friendships that I've had with people, and um, the impact that I have on students will be my legacy more than anything. I would think that would be what I would want it to be as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, Ryan, thanks for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me for a bit. And I'm just sorry we couldn't do this like we did the last time, sitting there at that all-you-can-eat buffet with wings and
Wings, yeah.
pizza and some cold ones. But those days will be back soon enough.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so hopefully I can get down to Miami at some point and hang with you guys down there a little bit with the fun and the sun. So
Yeah, man, absolutely. Anytime, brother. You're always welcome.
all right. Well, I really thank you. This was very insightful, and make sure you check out the links in the show notes if you want to know more about Ryan's not only his dissertation but projects he has going on, and certainly take a read of that dissertation, because I think there's some really impactful information in terms of the mechanics of playing and some great exercises in there as well. So I think it's a good tool for any trumpet player to have at it. So once again, thank you very much, Dr. Chapman, and thank you for joining us. And as always, peace and slide grease. We out. Hey, thank you so much for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating connection through our mutual love for the trumpet life. I hope that you learned a few things about today's guest and had some laughs along the way. Don't forget to give us a review. We love those 5-star ratings. And please share this podcast with your friends. We want to see our hang grow for show. Have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest? Hit me up at thetrumpetgurus@gmail.com. Our opening theme was written and performed by Lexi Signor, and all other music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. So in the words of W.C. Handy, life is like a trumpet. If you don't put anything into it, you don't get anything out. So go out there and let your trumpet sound. And I'll see you at the next hang.